I basically worked from the time I was 14 years old, moved out when I was 17, and I didn't get my undergrad like until I was 28, 30, when my
Oh,
kids were very young. And then I finished my MBA in my 40s, late 40s. So it's been kind of a really roller coaster ride. But throughout that whole journey, it was always about bettering myself so that I could help others, like you said earlier, especially women who maybe don't have the opportunity to learn about, investing in finance and help themselves. I actually thought that was my way to give back. And so I'm constantly learning. I'm still taking courses now as I sit here
mhm,
speaking to you. But yeah, so it's been
mhm.
a different journey. But through that journey, it was really about kind of finding the balance between being married and going to school and having children and working and all of those things together. Um, I had to find a way to make it work. And I'm happy that I've been married 32 years and I think we found a great way to make it work.
Dishonesty, disrespectful, discrimination, detached, dismissive. That's it. I'm done. Relationships can be messy. Are you having trouble with your personal or professional relationship? Not to worry. As a relationship therapist and coach for over 25 years, I have a lot to share, and so will my guest experts. Let's get smarter in our business and personal lives so we can be our best selves. Now, let's get on with the show. Welcome back to the Mixing Business with Pleasure podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Judith Chambers, who has spent over 25 years in the financial services industry as an advisor and senior leader with the wealth management business. The purpose of her practice is to listen, guide, and support the financial well-being and investment goals of her clients. She takes an inclusive approach with a focus on helping affluent women, business owners, and families achieve what matters the most to them. Now, I just wanted to make a note to my listeners here because you might have noticed that there's been quite a few episodes on women in business or women, with advice and how to, in a smart how to invest, smarter, or the types of investments that you might want to make yourself aware of, whether that be public or private. Women, yeah, just women in business, startups, etc. But anyway, like the reason why I want to bring more finances to the conversation, especially for women, is that um, you know, all marriages end. And they either end in divorce or death, but they all end. And I don't want you to be one of those women that, have no clue about your finances when one of those two things happen to you. And I mean, we're dealing with enough at that stage of life, right? You can imagine the amount of sadness that will come around either one of those situations. And having to learn a lot about your finances at that point is probably the last thing you want to do. So that's one of the reasons why you could say there's been a bit of a theme around the finance realm and especially with women. So with that, Judith, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay. So, as I always like to do, why don't you just start off by letting us know a little bit about you, personally and professionally?
Well, I think you said it in your intro. Thank you for that, by the way. Yes, I've been in the wealth management business for most of my career. Um, But funny, I always wanted to be a radio broadcaster. I wanted to be on TV and news and do all that. And I got a job at the bank when I was, starting school and kind of sort of enjoyed it. And I liked helping people. So instead of being in front of a camera, I'm in front of clients and helping them that way. Um, so yeah, so I'm married. I have two grown boys. One is also married and has followed his mom's footsteps, which I'm very proud of. My younger son is starting his own business as well. And I actually, I see, I got into this business really non-traditionally, and my education, my life path was not really traditionally. I didn't finish high school, go to university, get a job, and get married. I basically worked from the time I was 14 years old, moved out when I was 17, and I didn't get my undergrad like until I was 28, 30, when my
Oh,
kids were very young. And then I finished my MBA in my 40s, late 40s. So it's been kind of a really roller coaster ride. But throughout that whole journey, it was always about bettering myself so that I could help others, like you said earlier, especially women who maybe don't have the opportunity to learn about, investing in finance and help themselves. I actually thought that was my way to give back. And so I'm constantly learning. I'm still taking courses now as I sit here
mhm,
speaking to you. But yeah, so it's been
mhm.
a different journey. But through that journey, it was really about kind of finding the balance between being married and going to school and having children and working and all of those things together. Um, I had to find a way to make it work. And I'm happy that I've been married 32 years and I
Mm.
think we found a great way to make it work.
Oh, congratulations. Okay, I want to know more about that. What
Mhm.
what do you feel are some of the characteristic traits that you acquired in your youth, perhaps from your upbringing that really helped you, you know, again, whether personally or professionally, like when you look back now thinking, wow, at the time I didn't think that was a big deal, but that really made a difference for me.
Yeah, I of course, as you get a little bit older, you reflect back, and I
Mhm,
think the biggest thing for me was I didn't really appreciate how hard my parents worked to
mhm,
provide for my sister and I. And I think I got the work ethic from them, as well as I had some great role models, my grandmother as well. And watching them work and be independent, not
mhm.
just as a couple, but my mom, like back in, the 70s, it wasn't normal for, a woman to be working full time and providing for her family along with her spouse, and they were very joint on everything they did. So I think that helped me, build who I am today.
Yeah. So what
Mhm.
I'm curious to know because I mean daycare and things like that wasn't very available in those years either, I can imagine. So what did your parents do in terms of taking care of the children while your mom worked?
Well, we were very lucky. My grandmother lived basically around the corner. So,
Okay.
so it was kind of, my mom worked part-time when we were very young, but my grandmother, her mother, lived around the corner. So we were able to go there after school and things like that.
Mhm.
And then, of course, as we got to that sort of 12-year-old age, kind of just came and went on our own. Mom and dad were working. So it was kind of, they called it the latchkey kids, where you would go in
Yeah.
and make your own lunch, make your own dinner, and go back to school. And
Right, right.
yeah,
Walk. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No supervision, no worries about somebody picking you up off the street and
yeah,
et cetera. Yeah,
a
I
little
mean,
different today, but
yeah, totally. Yeah. So, okay, work ethic. So how does that work? Okay, so you really appreciate work ethic and the whole idea of independency and determination, it sounds like really got you far in life.
mhm.
But did those two pieces of who you were like collide when you became a mother? Because I mean, it sounds like you went from being extremely independent and working. maybe even multiple jobs, and then you met your husband, and
Mhm.
then had a child, and then all of a sudden did that come to like full stop? Like like all of a sudden now you're at home with a baby. That must have felt quite strange to you.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I mean, I think back, and the best thing in my life was my two children, my husband, and but you kind of lose a part of yourself. I'm sure many women can identify with that because I did want to be a career professional woman, and then you have to take care of, the children. And my husband, thank goodness, he was such an amazing help with the kids and raising the boys. But yeah, I didn't stop. I only had back then 6 months off work. I know
Okay.
women can go a year, 2 years sometimes now, and then go back into the workforce, and it's much more acceptable
Yeah.
with women today than maybe it was when I had my children. So I went back after about 5.5 months. Um, but again, I think it's the supports around you, and I was very, very fortunate to have great supports with my in-laws around me to help take the boys, when I was working. Great daycare system.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was really tough, and I put my career on hold for probably the first, 5, 6 years while my children were young. I really didn't pursue promotions. I didn't pursue higher education because I wanted to be present for my kids.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
and so once they were in school, that's when I went back to school.
Okay, okay, okay. So you actually went back to school. It wasn't just going into the workplace. You decided
I
to,
did both.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember at times ever feeling guilty during
All the
this
time.
phase?
I don't
Yeah.
think that ever goes away as a mother.
Yeah.
Um, you always think I'm doing this for them. But I want something for me. But I need to be present for my children. And again, I think I was very lucky because had a very supportive spouse who was able sort of to pick up when I was, at school or at work, and we worked back and forth that way. And but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, I still to this day think, oh, if I knew then, maybe I would have done this different or that different. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
But as you mentioned in the beginning, it sounds like both boys are doing really well.
yeah,
And yeah, so I think we cause ourselves a lot of anxiety and worry over nothing, right? And yeah, I can even see that with my children being in late teens, early 20s. It's sort of like you worry about them so much, have you done a good job? And then somebody meets them, and you get nothing but compliments about
yeah.
them, and you're just going,
Mhm.
yeah,
I guess we did good, right? Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it
yeah.
never stops. I mean, you never stop worrying. I mean, my boys are grown, they're their own adults now, but you never stop worrying, right? And that's just
No,
part of being a parent. So, no
yeah,
different than, with your career. You always think, oh, well, what can I do to get to the next level? And you're worried about, you know, do I stay here or do I pursue a career? Is it okay to be a woman in this job? Is it okay not to take that promotion? Is it okay to just, be me? And
yeah,
when I was growing up in the workforce, probably similar to you, sometimes I was the only woman in a very male-dominated profession, which is not the case today. But it was
right.
really difficult to feel that I was okay to be in that role, or I could go for that promotion, or I could do that job because, oh, but wait, there's no other women doing it. So maybe I'm not smart enough or I'm not good enough. So
Right.
that's sort of the other side of, you worry about your parental, what you're doing with your kids. But on the
Mhm.
other end, as a woman in my career back then, it was more about, oh, am I good enough to do this as well?
Well, yeah, you make a really good point there. I mean, and because, we get a lot of parental advice, like, I mean, maybe not so much back in the 70s and 80s. Well, definitely not. I think I remember, parental advice being more like when you go to your pediatrician, they might hand you a pamphlet or, you know, my kids were really quite young when I realized, when I had my first phone and you
Mhm.
could even Google things. I mean, now it's just incredible. It's too much advice. In
Yeah.
fact, everybody's throwing you a suggestion on a book or a way to raise your children, like every single direction you go to, not to even mention social media.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it's incredible the difference, but but in terms of career and business, wow, like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say as someone, as an entrepreneur myself, and always being a business owner from like pretty much a year or two after I graduated, like I
Mhm.
just feel like I felt on my own so much. So, uh, and I must say I didn't turn to my husband very often because he wasn't in my industry at all. And he was more working for the city than anything else. So, yeah, I was without advice in terms of business at all. How about yourself? Do you remember like ever turning towards your husband and kind of trying to get some, I mean, I'm not sure what industry he was in, but was he helpful in that area or
Well, I mean, he wasn't in the world of sort of finance and banking, I guess, at the time. He's more government related.
okay,
Um,
yeah.
so we were very different in our careers.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes that's good, because it's someone who's not as close in the business as maybe someone a colleague you might talk to. With him, he come at a different perspective. And I found
Mm,
that really helpful, in some ways, because he made me look at it with a different lens, um, good or bad, at the same
mm,
time. But it was really helpful to bounce it off someone who perhaps isn't in the same industry. Like you said, your husband wasn't, but it was just
yeah.
nice to have that perspective from somebody else from the outside, looking in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, was it always, you know, perfect, or did it always help? No, because everybody's different in how they do their careers, and but I think you sometimes you just go at on your own and you just figure it out, I think, right?
Yeah.
And probably
Yeah.
you were completely an entrepreneur. I was fortunate to work for a company that provided me a salary initially and things like that. So I had that comfort. So it wasn't quite the same,
Right.
but it was more about, if I want to do something different, he would be there, or we have conversations about what makes the most sense for me, for our family.
Good.
Um, yeah.
Good. And I'm curious, is he still working as well or retired
He
now?
is. He's in politics, so
Okay.
so he's
Okay.
busy
Okay.
that way. But yeah, I know he's still working.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
for a while yet, and I plan on working for a long time as well. It's
Yeah.
actually kind of nice being empty nesters. You actually can focus a little more on your career, and then when you come home, you have more time to focus on each other, because you're not busy running around with kids. And for me, the extracurricular things I do now is more philanthropic. I
Mm,
work with community. That's sort of a passion of mine as well. And now that my kids are on their own, I can pursue that a little bit more. So, which is
mm-hmm.
actually lots of fun, and I really enjoy that too.
Great. Great. So during the busiest of times, do you remember how, like in terms of, if you're going to help others, like other maybe 40-year-old women that are going through this stage right now, that their children are anywhere from toddlers to just below 10 or whatever, and also are very passionate about their
Mhm.
careers. um, what advice would you give to them if they're struggling, like burning both ends of the candle, which is really common for me to
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, what, I would just say, just it's okay. It's okay to feel like you can't be everything to everyone, and just even if you take one day, one afternoon, 1 hour just to yourself, and just to
Mhm.
sort of group and
Mm-hmm.
refresh. And for me, it's journaling. Like I like to write down. I remember
Mm-hmm.
especially um, when my boys were younger. I mean, we were always on the go. I don't know how we did it, plus working, right? And I see some of these younger women now. Like you said, you got social media. You're not just on one phone. You've got a cell phone, you've got five different messaging systems, you've got your
Yeah.
laptops, and so it can be overwhelming. Plus, now your children have access to that. So
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it's like today raising young kids because you have so many things pulling at you. It's not just the kids are home from school and they're doing their homework. It's like all of
Right.
these external things. So I would just say, it's okay to feel overwhelmed, but just try and take a moment. Like I said, if it's an hour, great. If you can take a half day, and if you're married or with a partner, even just my husband and I always had date night.
Oh, you
Yeah,
did have date night.
we always had
Okay.
date night one at least once a month. I mean, we would
Yeah.
have loved to do it more, but we always tried to have a date night.
Yeah.
So it was just the two of us, so we can just, you know, kids were with grandma or with a babysitter, and then we would go away and just sort of just sometimes we wouldn't even talk. We would just take a deep breath, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that, for us, that was really, really a good way to just decompress. Because
Mhm.
yeah, it's hard juggling everything. And I would just say, just try to take a moment for yourself, even if it's once a month with
Yeah.
your partner, or if you're a single mom, that's even more challenging, but have someone take your
Mhm.
kids or and just go and be with a friend or go for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
just to
Yeah.
try and find a way to just sort of breathe.
Yeah. How
Mhm.
about I was just thinking, do you remember sort of, I mean, this is difficult, right? Because we're going back quite a few years, but do you remember doing any sort of practices with the day-to-day stuff like with your husband that I don't know, made it easier? Like like I mean, with the work I do, I often talk about sort of like daily connection, like just sort of reading your partner, and like what I see quite often is like I don't think people actually realize how much like you said something like taking a breath and pausing because if we're on the go so much like and then our partner turns to us and he's like maybe Mr. Grumpy or whatever, like you're so quick to sort of react like that,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
sort of like so reading each other's body language and maybe like pausing sometimes, like I mean, again, I don't expect you to rewind the clock, 30 years and go, yeah, exactly. Well, what we did, but is there any sort of like, can you remember like how did you do like making yourselves a team when it came to your boys or
Yeah, I think back and it was hard. Like I will
yeah,
not say it was easy because it was hard, and we came from completely different upbringings.
mm,
Not good or bad either way, but we were
yeah,
completely different, and so coming together and raising children with like I said, I was on my own. My
yeah,
parents worked all the time. My sister and I were on our own. We didn't have sort of daily routines
yeah,
outside other than school.
hmm,
Whereas my husband was he comes from a large family. It was very routine. They had, you know, so it was a really hard, and so we both had to sort of try and compromise sometimes.
yeah,
And it was never yelling, it was never about yelling. It was really just about conversations, and just
yes,
you can agree to disagree. And I think sometimes we got really mad at each other, right, because
yeah,
we didn't agree
yeah,
on certain things, but it was through just conversations and realizing that, yeah, we have different perspectives, but we're here together raising these wonderful young men or young
yeah,
children. So how do we make it work? And yeah, it was hard. So it's really just trying to like have conversations. That's really for me. I do that with, in my day-to-day job as well. It's just trying to have a conversation to understand what the person on the other side of my desk is telling me.
yeah,
Same with my spouse. I mean, and my children. Like they're different too. They're different
yeah,
personalities. So
yeah, yeah.
mhm.
Very, very good advice. As someone who does this for a living, like I mean, you're right. Like I'm really glad you mentioned that too, that you came from very different homes. Like And so like he's normalized routine,
Hmm.
dinner at a certain time, and then this happens, and then this happens, and to him, because anything repeated becomes
A
our
habit,
belief,
I
right? And our
believe. Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to convince you then, no, no, this is actually the way it needs to be done because he inherently believes it's the only way to be. And you're like, well, no, actually, it doesn't need to be done that way. And yeah, just you're
But I,
bang on.
yeah, and I would say though that routine, like that routine that I maybe didn't quite have as a child, I really wanted. So,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
think with our kids, that was one of the things we tried to instill was routine. Now, we
Hmm.
didn't have tablets and cell phones. They got them when they were, young teens,
Yeah,
but growing up in their formative years, they didn't have all that. So it was different. But I would say
yeah,
we tried to have routine. I think nowadays I talk to young moms and they say, you know, my son or daughter has, half an hour after dinner on their,
yeah,
whatever, their tablet,
yeah.
their iPad, and then we go, do homework and go to bed and those kind of things. I think routine is really important in anything we do, like in our jobs and
E-
life.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Okay, so bringing it to like routine in your work, and working with clients, then what have you seen as being, kind of, I guess, tell us more about your magic. Like what actually do you feel like in your experience now is really what perhaps women or individuals or families are lacking, and what you've sort of mastered and you know are really helpful with. Excuse this brief interruption, but I would be bereft not to share this wonderful opportunity with you. I am now accepting new clients to be coached. Nothing makes me happier than to jump on this podcast with you weekly, but the majority of my time is actually spent creating and customizing one-on-one client experiences. The link to my website explaining what this all looks like will be linked in the show notes, and I invite you to check it out. Now, let's get back to the show.
It's interesting to say that it's not so much about the dollars and cents of it all,
Yeah.
which is, I talk to clients about, their finances and things, but it's more about um, listening.
Yeah.
You really have to understand what someone, because what I want and what you want are completely different. So I can't
Hmm.
project my own goals or my own, what I
Hmm.
think retirement looks like to me, for example, because it's different. So for me, I feel, we call about magic, and sometimes I will hear people say, "Well, hey, you really listen and you get me, you understand me." I think for what I do for a living and just in life in general, I think just listening and making sure that you understand what's important to that person across the table that you're having dinner with, that you're meeting with,
Hmm.
and understanding what's important to them, and then being able to, in my world, just map it out for them and put it
Yeah.
down on paper. And it's giving them their routine almost, right? In
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
perspective. But yeah, it's really listening. I would say I'm pretty good at that. I'm not always perfect, but I really want to
Hmm.
sit there and understand what's most important to you because I can't advise you unless I know.
Right, exactly. That it's I know. Our jobs are quite similar in that way, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it is like, interesting because you're counseling, you're advising. I mean, ultimately, that's really what I'm doing. It's just really trying to help you in whatever way I can, whether it's financially or just planning or just what's
Mm-hmm.
your goals. And I always say, for me, it's being really authentic. Like I'm
Yeah.
not just because I'm in this role doesn't mean I'm any better or better than anyone. I'm just like anybody else. Just really,
Yeah.
this is who I am. If you
Mm-hmm.
like dealing with me, if you have that trust in me, then we'll work well together. Just like a
Yeah.
friendship, you know, maybe
Yeah.
it's professional, but it's just like a friendship. You really have to build trust
Yeah.
and you have to be authentic. You have to show people who you really are because if you don't, it's just not going to work.
No, exactly. It's so true. And it's like, I mean, if you both, like you and the client align, then that's the magic, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
because it's you're being authentic
Mhm.
and yeah, they align with you in many ways.
Yeah. And I've
Yeah.
learned a lot in my career is that, you know, you, it's not, in my world, it's not about the money. It's really about making sure that you align because eventually if you and I don't work together well, you're
Yeah.
going to find somebody else that you work better with. And so I
Right.
will make sure I'm upfront with people and say, if we can't work together, if you don't trust me, if you don't like the values that I bring to the table, then
Mm.
I can refer you to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
What is the one of the biggest concerns that you might um have for women in like in 2024 or I mean whether it's in specific type of investing or yeah, what do you think? Or if you have any at all or like
Yeah, so I mean, I'll really give you from my own personal perspective,
yeah.
I guess. It's just really um a lot I see a lot of young people around me. I'm just speaking from, people that I know and people I see, and is sometimes you want that big shiny object, right? And in this day and age, that like when even when my husband and I first bought our first house, it was expensive, but not the way it is today. And
Yeah.
I just feel I'm telling, I would say to women, just, take the time. It's okay to buy something smaller. It's okay to start small. It's okay to just take steps to get where you want to go. You don't need to run to the
Yeah.
top of the mountain, right? You can
Yeah.
start climbing it slowly. And I just think sometimes we want that big shiny object today, and we have to work for it. We have to work our way up to it. It's just things are so expensive, and
Yeah.
um, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I would just say just take your time. And of course, I'm always about saving, right? If you save from a young age, you'll get
Yeah.
that big shiny object eventually.
Yeah, yeah. Patience, young grasshopper is what
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say. It's so true. And it doesn't matter. Like, I think one of the biggest reasons right now why this is so challenging for, the 30-year-olds and the 40-year-olds is that they see on social media what other people have, whereas we
Yeah.
never saw that,
Yeah.
right? It was just sort of we all we could do is see what our neighbor has, and oh, we're living in the same area, so like I mean, I guess
Yeah.
this is all good.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, and that's the real challenge, I think, and that's where like authenticity comes in as well. It's sort of even with couples, as well, couples are just they see all the other happy couples on social media and they all look so beautiful as well. Like I
Hmm.
mean, they're all gorgeous and it's sort of an era of white teeth and rotten gums. It's sort of like what's happening on the inside though. Like
Yeah.
none of us know. I know a little bit more because they're in my office,
Yeah.
but like otherwise, yeah, I think you're right. It's that shiny, we have to have this type of home in this neighborhood and we can mortgage it and we can also have that big truck and we can lease that and
We go
see
on
everything's
vacation.
working.
And yeah.
Sorry, and
We can go
vacation,
on
of
vacation.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 and I think I mentioned to you we spoke a few weeks ago, but
yeah.
I went through a life-changing event recently,
Right.
and that has really put things into perspective and given me a whole completely different view on what's most important, and that big shiny object, the big house. It's not most important thing is my health and my family,
Hmm.
and um and so, yeah, I've really, I wish everybody could get that feeling without getting, sick. right?
Yeah,
Have that
exactly.
same aha moment because it really made a difference to me. And so now when I'm even having conversations with my children or friends, it's really a different perspective. And so when
Mhm.
someone talks about those big shiny objects or the big house or all of those things, I say, well, have you really thought about this? And then you go back to what is the most important thing to you?
Mhm.
And yeah, and it kind of regrounds you.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for bringing that up because, yeah, I know it's sort of like no one wants to hit rock bottom to understand this, right? Like
Right.
financially and rock bottom mentally and rock bottom emotionally.
Mhm.
Um, and I tell you, yeah, once people are there, like even with depression, for example, there's been a number one of my clients that have reached that level of sadness and loneliness and emptiness in their life and the darkness where now they're much more astute in terms of their emotions when they even have a glimpse of that coming on, like
Mhm.
they beeline it for my office and just go, this is what I'm feeling, this is sort of like, and they get very very comfortable talking about their emotions because hell or high water, they'll do everything not to go back there again.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of, it's a similar what you're saying with your health. And I mean, there's not a day that goes by in my life that I thank the heavens above for my health and what I have, because not, I guess not that I've become sick myself, but like I've lost family members, right? So it's just sort of like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
sometimes
just,
that just comes with age and wisdom. I mean, I
yeah,
recognize that, right?
yeah,
I mean, how do you tell a 25-year-old, you know,
yeah,
just, own the moment and enjoy the moment. Don't try to let your life, fly by because here I
yeah,
am today and this is what my journey was. You don't want to be here. You want to be and enjoy it. And yeah, so I mean, it does come with time and wisdom, but if I can impart any of that, whether it's a client, whether it's my children or my friends, it's really about just, um, you know, things are things. I
yeah,
recently, my mother passed away during this whole process as well, and she had lots of stuff. My mom was, I think you commented on the lamp behind me. She was a collector, and I got this Mad Hatter lamp, which I love. But she had so much stuff, and really, when you think about it, it's just stuff, right? It's just
oh,
stuff. Like I wish if I could have her back today,
yeah.
I would give up so much just to have her back, and you can. So I mean, I think just enjoy the time you have with whether it's friends, family,
Mm-hmm.
because it does go by so fast.
You're right. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up friends there too. Like, how did you manage that in your later years, or did you just sort of like, have the type of friends that you could just say, girls, we're putting it on pause here. I might not see you for the next several months. Life is crazy.
Mhm.
But I will connect with you again, sort of thing. Like, do you remember kind of how you managed to?
Yeah, and your circle changes, right, as you go.
Yeah.
I'm very, very fortunate. I've had the same group of girls
Hmm.
friends for many, many years. We all moved away different places, but we're still very close. But yeah, I think it again goes back to that authenticity and just
Yeah.
connecting with people because, yeah, sometimes, you're busy with life. I'm busier now, I think, um, in my
Yeah.
life now than I was when my kids were younger, but my kids I was more connecting with, the hockey parents and the
Mm,
school parents and all of those things. And my friends sometimes, yeah, I would just say, you know what, I
mhm.
might not see you for a couple weeks or let's connect in a month. But I would usually make a time. I would make a date with them and just this is
Yeah.
our date. Like I still have Thursday nights with my girlfriends.
Oh,
And I've been doing
wow.
that for 25 years.
Gee whiz. Like, and
Mhm.
you do different things together, or do you more or less the same thing?
Yeah, it's just really a way for us to get together. We used to watch Sex in the City. That was our Thursday
Yeah.
night. So now it's just Thursday nights and we get together, whether it's a glass of wine or some appetizers or
Yeah.
sit out on the patio. It's just a
Yeah.
way just to connect and check in
Yeah.
with each other. So
Yeah.
again, it just goes back to checking in with yourself. We talked about, as young moms, just take a
Mm-hmm.
time, whether it's with your spouse or even with your girlfriends, go and just have a
Mm-hmm.
moment for yourself because it heals the soul. I always say it makes you feel so much better and allows you to go back and say, okay, I can do this, right?
Yeah, yeah. And in that go, go, go mentality, you don't even know what that even looks like. Be with yourself or ask yourself or yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean I have those clients as well that are actually very uncomfortable with silence. Like they don't like to be by themselves. They don't, and that's if you're somebody that's listening right now and you feel like you're somebody that needs to have the radio in the background all the time or the TV or you don't want to spend any time alone in your apartment or wherever you are, then you need to figure that out because you need that quiet time in order to do exactly what you're saying, Judith. Is sort of like, yeah, like I don't know, there's something missing, right now. I don't know what it is. And then you think, well, yeah, actually, I haven't seen any of my girlfriends for the last 6 months.
Hmm.
Maybe
Hmm.
that's what it is, and then you have the conversation with your husband, like, I'm noticing this. How can we make this happen easier? And yeah, it's just, but
Yeah. I'm my own worst enemy too. Like I am, my husband says I don't sit still for a second, right?
right.
I always go, 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 go. And so I have to consciously take that breath and say, okay, I'm okay. It's okay to stay here and
Yeah.
have just a movie night or just read a book or,
Right.
and so for me, I've started doing some breath work and some meditation because that helps me
Mm-hmm.
calm down. So, I mean, there's so many ways. I'm sure that you tell your clients too. There's so many
Yeah.
ways that you can do that. But yeah, you have to take time. And my husband is a good check-in for me. He'll
Oh,
say,
good.
"You haven't been home in 4 nights. Um, you need to come home and you just need to relax." So
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we check in that way. And whether it's your spouse or your friends or whatever, have someone that you can check in with and say, "Hey, um, it's
Yeah.
okay to just relax," right?
Yeah. Yeah. How about one other thing I'll ask you is like other lifestyle habits. Like, were you always good with physical activity and let's say nutrition, or did you
Yeah.
slip at times?
Oh, well, I'm pretty good. Like I've always been active. Like I was always, athlete in sports and I've
Hmm.
always been in the gym. I play ringette in the it was over 30-year-old ladies league. Now we're all over 40,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I still was playing ringette for many, many years and going to the gym. And I think that kept me for me, that was I used to run. I can't run anymore, but I used to run. Running was a way just to get rid of like the stress and the energy. So now for me it's meditation or I'll work out. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's so important to do that.
Mhm.
Eating right, well, yeah, I think I probably eat pretty good. Better
Mhm.
now as I got older, but you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Just and better now as well because again, another plethora of information out there, right? Like if you don't,
Mhm.
yeah, I always
I mean,
think
I
that,
used to eat Kraft dinner. That was my lunch every day, right? And that's not such a good food,
mm,
right? When you think about what's
no.
in it now. But back then it was like everybody had Kraft dinner for lunch. That was the thing as kids.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, even in university for me, like I mean, it's sort of like, cereal for dinner just seemed like a good option.
Yeah. Chips and dip for breakfast. I mean, that was my go-to sometimes when I was,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
I
No,
know.
I think there's so much more now. I agree. And with nutrition on that, it's really easy to eat really good food, but also eat well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think, yeah, I think that we did a really good job of talking about blending, personal life with business life and being able to have both. Like look at you, I mean, you've done so well, in your career, probably better than you had ever maybe imagined you would be, as a young
Hmm.
mother,
Hmm.
needing to take time off or whatever. And how many years married? Did you?
32.
32? Like,
Mhm.
kudos. Again, that's like not that's a rarity. That's an
Mhm.
outlier nowadays. It sounds like you still have good girlfriends, like good friendships. Um, yeah, I mean, like you're doing really well.
Yeah, but I mean, I think for me, I mean, it all sounds wonderful, but it hasn't always been wonderful. And I think having those friendships, having my husband to lean on, my kids, like having those pieces in my life, and my sister too is a big part of that.
Mm,
Just being able to lean on those people when you really are,
mm,
not in a great
right,
space,
right.
is really, really helpful. So I would just say, don't I can be very insular sometimes with
Yeah.
myself. I'm sure there's people who are listening probably feel the
Mhm,
same way. You keep it all inside, and
mhm.
sometimes you just need someone to check in with because that's for me that's not healthy. And
Right.
I just find now having those friends, husband, kids, just someone to check in, or someone like yourself, if they don't have
Mm,
maybe, that's the same circle, but finding someone
mhm,
like yourself to talk to is so
mhm.
important because it's about mental health and physical health, right?
Yeah. No,
And
thanks
then you
for
can do it all.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And then we can do it all. Right. No, thanks for bringing that up too. That's so true. It looks again, it looks very shiny and bright on the
Mhm,
outside. Like, oh wow, I wish I had Judith's life. It sounds great. Like, how did she do everything? But yeah, we all, I always say, we all have our own crosses to bear.
mhm,
I'm sure your husband is not, Mr. Wonderful and supportive, all the time or throughout all your years. I mean, you've like you said, we did definitely have our challenges, and but one thing I always like to remind my clients is sort of like always remember your vision, like your
mhm,
your your vision, not only your personal vision, like your career vision, but also your vision of you and your partner. Like,
mhm.
don't lose sight of that. Like, you had it when you began this adventure together, and it is 100% an adventure. You're going to go on a hell of a ride, but um, like if you lose sight of your vision, you've lost the plot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sort of reminding yourself, okay, wait a minute. Okay, we're a team, we both want this, remember? And yeah, how are we going to get that? Just the example you
Yeah.
gave, I had no routine, he had all routine. What do we want for our kids?
Mhm.
And work that out somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because you talk about, that vision. Well, those are the conversations I will have when I'm meeting with individuals. So, what's your vision? Like, okay,
Yeah.
so things aren't go so good today, maybe financially, but let's look at your vision. How can we get you there? And those
Mhm.
are things, whether it's financially or whether it's personally, you have to, like you said, stick to that goal because you can get there. You just have to stick to it. You might have a few sidetracks, but you'll get there.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, and like, especially like, I'm gonna map this out. I think he used that term one time for you. Okay, so
Mhm.
that's where we're going. And it's like, yeah, you are here on the map. This is where you want to get to at the end of the trail.
Yeah.
So let's go this direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there might
So
be a fork in the road, but it'll still come back to the same goal at the end, right?
right,
Same.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, we don't need Google Maps. We actually
No, for our
it's
own
actually
Google Maps.
people, yeah, like on a total side note, like my girlfriend and I were talking about that. And I think she listens to all my podcasts, so episodes, so she'll hear this as well. It's sort of like we both have young boys around the same age, and we were just discussing how neither of them know the street names like of anywhere that they go. Like, they'll go the same route every single day, and if I would ask them, how do you get there, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I just go on Google Maps. Like, it's crazy. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Oh, yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
not know street
And phone
names?
numbers. Phone numbers. Even
Oh,
I'm bad now. I
yeah.
I know the phone numbers that I've known for a long time, but anybody new, it's just no phone
Yeah.
number. If I ever lost my phone, what would I do, right?
Yeah. My gosh, you're right. I have
Yeah,
no idea.
yeah. So
Except my kids. And even then I have to kind of think for a second. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, me too. But
So, okay, well, thanks so much, Judith. If there's anything else you want to just end with, or if you think we've wrapped it up,
yeah,
this is
I just want to thank you, Luella, for reaching out, and this is great conversation. And
Mhm.
like, it's nothing is ever perfect, but I think, like you said, if you work together and you have a goal in mind, that's what you need to
Mhm.
stay focused on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And if anybody is, listening right now and they love what Judith is saying and her approach, then we will have her LinkedIn in the episode description. And yeah. So,
Great.
okay.
Thank you so
Anyone
much.
else? Have a great week. Thanks, Judith. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Remember that you can watch the full episode on YouTube, where I plan to hang out the most. Your feedback and suggestions for future guests are incredibly valuable to me, so please don't hesitate to post a comment. You are an integral part of this journey.